if you want to know who you can encourage or who you can validate, just find somebody breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved that line.
I love that.
Yep. Yep.
Because everybody needs some of that.
Yep. It's almost like you guys have designed it that way.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more. Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast, hanging out with S.J. Jennings, exploring the kingdom together and exploring validation together. Yeah. We're in part 3, which sometimes happens when you think you're going to do a 2-part series, and it's like, man, we got some more to talk about.
Yeah. There's
some more things that would be fun to explore, to offer. So here we are in part 3 of the weight of validation. And I don't want to do a big review.
No, but I think it was very validating that you asked me about the coin and the word. You get one word on either side. Mm-hmm. Mine was strength and training. Yeah. So what would be the words that are for me? Yeah. What's God doing right now? Which words resonate most clearly for you right now?
Well, on the side with the lion, loving, learning, kindness, and strength.
Loving, leading.
Thank you. And learning's on the other side. Loving, leading.
Training's on the other side. Learning is not on there, bro. You designed this coin. What is happening right now? Yeah. I'm here. I'm in. Okay.
So, and the funny thing is, that's not even the word. That was not the words I'm looking for. I'm trying to get to the word that I really want, and that is probably for me, SJ, kindness. Okay. And so, if you remember, we go back to the January advance. Yeah. And in preparation for the January King Me Advance retreat, where all of our alumni are eligible and came to out to Rockbridge. Prior to that, there was a maybe in November. So events have a long prep kind of runway. And that's more the takeoff runway versus the landing runway. And this whole idea of kindness I'd written about it. It's a part of King Me, but there were just some deeper places that God was taking me. And in November, it was on Apple TV. I'm sure it was something I clicked over to Apple TV to, when's Ted Lasso coming out? You know, something like that. And there is this short animated film, about 30 or so minutes, called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. And we had that book. Robin had that book. But there was something about...
He's pretty active on Instagram. I think that's probably where Robin found, or Sherry did, or you did. I don't know.
But the children's book has been out for a while. Yeah. But and anyway, so all that together kind of became one of those. That looks good. So if you leave it on, if you leave that on your screen on your television, it plays. It'll play. It now plays kind of an auto-mercial thing. And as it played, I was like, it just got more intriguing, And so, again, in a series of events that go back even a few years of writing the book and looking at what is a good king. How does a good king love and lead well? What are the characteristics of a good king? And then looking at Jesus, and I don't want to do a King Me review, but I'm just saying there was a lot of things moving into this next kind of installment.
Yeah.
And so I watched that, and I'm just kind of Kleenex is close. I had to get up and get some Kleenex.
It's resonating.
Not because it's sad.
No.
But because it was penetrating. It was touching spaces in me of longing, of desire, of hope.
Yeah, the tuning fork was
that's a good word.
Vibrating.
For it. Yeah. And I would say, and then it got me curious and intrigued about Charlie and looking at him and just this idea of kindness, even before that was the Fred Rogers kind of semester that I was in, and Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and Tom Hanks playing Fred Rogers, and the power of kindness, and then Jesus, so all of that just happened to, be at, in this journey that I was on and writing about and discovering. And like I said, earlier in the other session about there's kind of these locker room moments, and then there's these field moments. Mm-hmm. You're reading about it, you're listening to it, you're learning about it. So it's the tuning fork, and then you go sing the note.
Right.
All of that happening. And so kindness has been elevated in my world, my heart, my pursuit of becoming kind. It's just, I don't think it's an issue of SJ that I didn't have that gauge on my dashboard. I didn't. It's like one got installed, if that makes sense. And I can watch it digitally or old, makes me think of my 72 Cutlass, where, or the old, the needle's moving. Yeah. But I would say that's a training circle, to use your word, that has been really fun and powerful to step into with Jesus and to learn kindness from him. So, and to see his agents on the ground like Charlie Mackesy and Fred Rogers, and a kind word turning away wrath, or being able to handle anybody's passion or disappointment kindly. And what that even means,
right.
Having it in a category, I think, for some reason growing up, to just, instead of nice guys lose, kind guys lose, some kind of agreement that's not been helpful. But so that's probably that side. I mean, lots more I could say about that, but
well, the line that's coming to mind from that short animated movie, the boy and the mole are sitting on a limb, right?
Of the tree. Yeah. Early on.
Go ahead.
Yeah. What do you want to be when you grow up?
And the boy responds,
kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
what a great perspective that, there's so much truth in that.
Yeah.
As a little boy that gets, it gets corrupted, it gets co-opted, it gets, taken out of us somehow.
Yeah.
I would argue that your dashboard had that gauge, and somebody ripped it out of there and put just like a plug in there, so you didn't know it was gone.
Yeah. Covered up or extracted.
Whatever.
Yeah, something. I could live with that. So
because I think we're wired for it, and that's what I love about that moment in that film. I think it's a recognition that when we're younger, we can see the need and the desire for that, the benefit, of that.
Yeah, lots of things, come to mind. I'm 100% convinced that we need to do at least one, maybe a couple podcasts on the boy, the mole.
Oh yeah,
the fox and the horse. It's just worth talking about,
Yeah.
and because I'm feeling that there's just so much more I'd like to talk about in that space and in the training that I'm in, and back to the other sides of the coin, the healing that I've experienced even recently in the last several weeks from God that is leading to kindness.
Yeah.
And so that would be my word on the other side of kindness is that word healing. And yeah, all the words have a level of overlap, meaning
Sure.
Receiving healing has training properties to it. Receiving healing has validating properties to it, and receiving healing is an initiation to more. And so, but I could have done the same thing with being validated has healing properties to it. Being validated has, you know what I mean? So,
Sure.
So, but I feel like the healing is just one that, whenever whenever anybody says something about, being stuck or feeling less, I described it recently as, and it's funny, I said something about the dashboard, but I felt like the dashboard on my heart, the check engine light has been on. And I've driven cars for a long time with the check engine light.
Yeah. My mom drove a car. I just have to throw this in there. She put a piece of tape over it so she wouldn't see it.
My OCD would can you do that? That makes it go away. That's a great idea. And so,
Mom.
or I've had cars, even the mechanic said, we can reset it, but it's going to keep coming on because of this and this. And this costs $800 to fix, and you really don't need to fix it. But the check engine lights go, okay, so you just keep driving it. But there's something wrong is the point of a check engine light. And I felt like, it's something that takes some kind of while. I'll say it takes a while, some kind of while. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 months, to whatever take a while means, when you can even say, the check engine light is on me. Something's not right. Something needs attention. And the diagnostics, taking the physical realm reality of check engine lights to the spiritual realm, that, those diagnostics, to kind of hook up with Jesus and say, what is it? What's going on? And in this case, things that led up to healing encounters with him. And for me personally, SJ, it was, this time, it was the invitation to go back with him into my story, into younger times and younger chapters of my story, and grieve and acknowledge and allow him to help me rewrite some of that. Not overhaul, but some of the conclusions I've made, the beliefs and the attitudes that I've carried with me from some of those younger chapters of my life, needed some diagnostic and attention for repair, for healing, and then an integrating of this younger part of me that has been kind of dragged is maybe a better word, into, the decades and even the presence that's, I'm not trying to be vague. It's just, if I go into that, SJ, it feels like, okay, let's talk about it a whole lot more. But that's kind of if I think of the headlines and some of the subtitles, that's why healing has been significant in my masculine journey recently. I'm in the king stage, but was going back after some explorer me in the explorer stage that, didn't go well and there was no talking day. There was no attention to that. You just soldier on, or you just go out and play, or you just it's ignored because when you're young, you don't necessarily know how to deal with that.
Yeah. Rub some dirt on it. Mm-hmm.
And so, to have some counseling and to get some time with somebody who is really good at guiding into healing spaces. I guarantee you, he didn't know we were going there. I didn't know we were going there. I know he knows we were going in a certain direction, like there's something there. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's why healing has been, and kindness. So having the training in kindness, I know it's going to come in handy, but it was a season recently that's still going on where being kind to that younger part of me, and then the younger part of me trusting the older part of me to be kind.
Right.
All of that's happening.
Yeah.
In a reorienting, reintegrating space of how God works in the life of a king. And there's something I put in King Me that's more true after the fact. So it cracks me up how God does this to me. It's true. I wrote something like that, or I said that, and then later he draws a little more from that, and that is that in the king stage, I wrote in King Me, in the king stage, it is the most prolific healing stage in a man's life, because he's arrived at a place that he can look back over a body of work. And if he has the right lenses, if he has the right vantage point, he can see.
Yeah.
He can see. The climb to this king stage, you can see a lot because it's, it's not covered up. What's covered up feels like is often in front of you. That's where the trail gets kind of goofy. But, we've hiked plenty of trails and mountains and vantage points. And when you can get to one, and you're still looking forward, but if you can look back and see what kind of ground you've covered, back to the boy,
or wake you've left,
back to the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. There's another scene where he says, look how far you've come. Right. Look how far you've come. And so, anyway, that's my long answer.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. Let's take a break.
And then some stories.
And then we'll come back with some stories of validation.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
Be right back. Every man has a kingdom. Not every king rules well. Like a living piece in life's checker game, you are moving across the board towards your time of greatest authority and impact. But what kind of king will you be? In King Me, I want to guide you through the 6 stages of the masculine journey and invite you to walk with God into healing encounters and validating experiences. Through this, we can learn to wield love as our greatest weapon and provide a kingdom where hearts are free. Every man does have a kingdom. Not every king rules well. You can. It's your move.
Now available on Amazon. See kingmebook.com for more details.
Welcome back to the Exploring More podcast, story time, talking about some stories of validation.
Stories of the sea.
Stories of the sea.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So I have just a story, a really recent one. We mentioned it in a previous episode kind of briefly. But we were coming up to our spring encounter, and a member of our team, Christopher, is kind of stepping into a little bit larger role at the weekend. He's gotten some more healing, some more training. And so he's stepping into a larger role in the I team, in the intercessory prayer team at the weekend. And I don't even remember. I don't think I was thinking about him or contemplating his role or anything. It just landed on me like.
Yeah, just landed on me.
How about that?
Yeah.
It just landed on my heart, hey, I think we ought to validate Christopher before we go to this weekend, because, as we've talked about, validation is an affirmation of kind of where you've come from, what you've been through, what you've experienced. Yeah. I see you. I love what I see, and an encouragement to keep going. And so this idea, it was Monday before I was going to. I think we were going to the turkey hunt. For a couple of days. So this was late April. And that kind of lands on me. And I don't tell anybody about it, just ruminate on it a little bit. And then I think, okay, I'm going to move towards this a little bit. And I contact Josh. Because Josh and Christopher talk about some of the things that they love. One of which happens to be Star Wars. And that whole saga, that is a saga. So I said to Josh, hey, I'm thinking about giving Christopher a lightsaber because I know how important Star Wars is to him. And though it's not a claymore like is on the wall over here, that's why I look that way. It's not, Anduril, Flame of the West, the sword that was broken, Aragorn's sword. It is still a sword and it's significant, right? So we talk a little bit about that. I talk with Greg. Greg's a bit of a Star Wars nerd also. So I say lovingly, right? And so we land on Luke's green lightsaber. So I order it up and we, the week or so before encounter, hijack him at our weekly team meeting.
Yeah, team meeting on Tuesdays. Yep. Yeah,
and I got to do Michael one of the things I love to do, which is stolen from Band of Brothers with Sergeant Lipton, and Lieutenant Spears is talking about a sergeant at Bastogne who made sure the men had what they needed.
Who was leading
them, checking on them, and Lipton was like, I don't know who you're talking about. And Spears was like, I'm talking about you. And I just loved that scene, right? So when I do validation ceremonies, I try to do that. Talk about a man and then reveal who I'm talking about. So I say Christopher's name.
And everybody in the room at that particular meeting knew
ahead of time.
About, but him.
But he didn't.
So, I don't know if they can see it on camera, but it's all like we're kind of watching you because you stood up, which was a great thing in the ceremony. And then you're starting to talk and we're kind of going, I wonder what, and he's not distracted, but I would say he's listening and, I wonder who he's talking about.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Great. Because there's without fail, I've had a chance to do a few validation ceremonies, whether it's with a sword or a lightsaber or a coin or whatever it is. The man, when I say the man's name, they're like, what?
Yeah.
You're talking about me? So he comes up and we get to speak life over him, hand on the shoulder, eye to eye, and
team did a great job.
And 100%, and present him with a lightsaber. And I'm telling you, man, two things I observed. He was, when I brought that out and handed it to him, he was like an 8-year-old boy who had gotten the present he had been asking for all year long on Christmas.
All his life. Stunned.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, laughter mixed with tears and, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I mean, it's great. It's great, man. Caleb did a great job. He was holding the camera, so I went back and watched it again last night.
Yeah, maybe he can it'd be great if he could put a still
maybe
on the YouTube version of the podcast.
Yeah.
I add two elements real quick to that. That was
the other thing I want to say first
fascinating.
Was I'm telling you, the guy looked taller. Afterwards.
Oh yeah. Well, there was no doubt, and I was so proud of him for he received it. That's a real trick in the validation exchange.
Yeah, he wasn't the no.
Yeah. He something really was happening in the spiritual realm, and you're right. His body responded. Second, third, fourthly, and I want to bring a how-to real quick into this. Mm-hmm. What I love about what you did is you did this from a knowing. You did what you did from a knowing Christopher's story and some of his hopes and aspirations, what he loves. You said that earlier. I just want to bring it back to light and say it made the gift and the ceremony incredibly special that you knew what he loved and the token was appropriate. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge part of a validation ceremony. Mm-hmm. Now, if we give a coin, they didn't say they love coins or they collect them or looking for them. I'm not saying that it covers the board, but in this case, if you're looking for a way to give something to someone, pay attention. That's what it communicates. Mm-hmm. What do they love? Get curious, and yeah, it's just great gift giving. If my girls are going to Taylor Swift, we got the tickets. We know they love them, and it's appropriate. Yeah. And so the lightsaber is appropriate. Now, two things. Now I get to the two things. Yeah. One was, unbeknownst to you in that space, God is working in some other spaces. Christopher says to, I think, Josh, or maybe Cole, you know what? He's on the I-team. He's stepping into those shoes, breaking them in, and he says, it would be cool? I would love to just kind of patrol at Rockbridge. I'd like to have a lightsaber and just kind of walk around, It sounds a little Disney parkish, honestly, but not to him.
Right.
This is about armed with a weapon that it may not be real in this sense, but it's very real in this sense, in the spiritual realm. Armed. So that was a piece that was said before and Christopher said.
Said it to Josh.
Yeah.
And when I asked Josh about which one, Josh told me about
all of that's happening to arrange for this ceremony. That's my point.
Yep.
Thirdly was after a few moments of shock and joy, he says, well, I got to show you something. He carries the lightsaber out of the room with him, by the way.
Yeah.
Wasn't going to leave it down.
Like, where's he going?
Where's he going? And he goes and he comes back from his office and he shows us this poster, and it's not a big one. I mean, it's about
11 by 17.
Yeah, maybe a little bigger, but about that size. Mm-hmm. And he had ordered it for himself, which just makes us all the grander. He had ordered it for himself, and it looked, SJ, like that poster actually could have been in the box as a commemorative.
Yep. Came with the lightsaber.
And what's wild about God and the way that he can work in this space, that poster that Christopher had ordered for himself was the same lightsaber, the green one. It's an image of Luke holding it up. It looks like Excalibur in the water.
It does.
It looks like that picture, that classic picture of Excalibur coming out from the Lady of the Lake.
Yes.
In the water, but it's Luke's arm. We were all like, we're not surprised that much anymore, but that doesn't take away our amazement at what can be orchestrated to validate a man on a Tuesday at a staff meeting. Mm-hmm. You'd have thought we were all wearing tuxes and here comes a life achievement award.
Right.
And so you just can't make this shiz up. And yet you can participate in it. And, the men that got to speak over Christopher, we didn't compare notes. We didn't but yet we harmonized in that moment.
There was a common theme.
It was tremendous.
Yeah.
It was
of
tremendous.
How we know him.
Yeah. Another story.
Yeah.
That as you look for this stuff, you will see way more of it, from either coordinating it or in my case, I wasn't a coordinator with Christopher, but I was a witness to it.
Mm-hmm.
You start to see this and how weighty this whole idea is. Back to validation. So the women had the Women's Deepening Weekend, and the guide team, which is our word for the speaker team, we call them the guide team. I work with them in, format and flow and, just the elements that pertain to that. And so it's just so interesting. You said something about Christopher kind of being like he was 8. It's really interesting because it happens to me too, and I can also witness it, I think, when it happens to others. So at the conference, I get to speak a couple times. It's an honor to do that and to be the guy that gets to speak to all the women.
You're one of the bravest men I know, and that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, so I step into that, and but on the way before that Heart of a Man talk on Saturday night, I'm kind of going over my notes, and there's that thought, that seed, that kind of that whisper, and I was thinking about the women and the women's team, and just I got to what happened was a little validation ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
They're in their seats. I'm looking at 200 women and thanking each woman for a part of their identity that's on display. And very powerful moment to me, very powerful moment to them. And some of it's because of the role that I play. It's the who you are, who's giving it.
Yep.
What are you saying? How are you saying it? All these things that we're talking about. And, at the end of it all, so now we're days later, and one of the speakers is saying basically about her talks, what did Michael think?
Mm-hmm.
Did I do okay?
Mm-hmm.
Did I hit the mark? And what is so sweet to me about that is not just how she's feeling and what she's saying and the role that I play. It took me to, I feel that way a lot.
Mm.
You guys came over to the porch the other day for us to talk strategy and mission and vision, and you and Greg engaging in that conversation was validating. I needed to dump a bunch of stuff. I needed you to help me, sort it out and rearrange some things. And I could have done it, but to do it together, I think I texted you guys later, man, thank you for coming over. So helpful, so encouraging. And I'm excited, about what Zoweh's days ahead look like. And so as there's 10 more stories that we could go into, but I want to make sure that in the stories of the sea that we're actually helping people do, both be invited to become sailors, and then also invited in how you build boats so that you can sail.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Because that's the whole parable.
Sure.
Of don't tell them how to build boats, tell them stories of the sea, and then they'll want to build boat. They'll want to know how to be a sailor,
and then they'll take the boat out and say, "I got an idea on how I can make that boat better."
Yeah, I'm
going to build another boat,
and who I want to come with me, and who needs to
because the experience
to be on this. So there are this honor culture and validating and encouraging, imparting courage or recognizing courage. Was just talking to my Hannah, my middle girl, who's, like all of us have been and all of us will be a little concerned about finances.
Yeah.
And to just say, honey, it's not true. You're doing well. On the world scale, you're wealthy. And she didn't say, well, I don't care about the world scale. It was more like, yeah, because she's my little missionary too. She's the one who goes to those countries and whatever clothes she's taken, she doesn't come home with, because she gives them, to these kids that is just, it's amazing, so, but, and she can validate, but it was her turn to receive,
right?
Encouragement and validation, and saying, I don't know, hon, about everybody else, but you're doing great. Proud of you. Can I borrow some money?
And it's so interesting, how you can, from your internal perspective, you can lose perspective.
Yeah, great point.
And how that validation as a form of love, as a form of encouragement, as we said, one of the, crucial ingredients to love, can just kind of awaken you again, and it's like smelling salts in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's lots of, I think it's one of the beautiful things about texting. I can send a validating text. I can send encouragement. There's plenty of other forms for reasons to text and communication and different things. But I think of, there are many moments where I can partner with God to see someone, answer their question. And as Ron, in honor of Ron, as we wrap it up, in Ron's memorial service, and actually captured on film, we were talking about Ron and his part in the Elder Sage Initiative, and now we'll have to see Ron on the other side. But one of the things he says is something I think he got from his dad about if you want to know who you can encourage or who you can validate, just find somebody breathing.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved that line.
I love that.
Yep.
Because everybody needs some of that.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this journey about validation. And man, I got to tell you, we could, like so many of the things we talk about, we could do, probably 3 or 4 more about validation.
Definitely story times. Yeah.
I mean, good grief. So if you've got questions or comments, leave them below. Email us, exploringmore@zoweh.org. And give us a like, subscribe, give us a validation so that this message can be found. And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast. Thanks for being with us. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.
and give us a like, subscribe, give us a validation so that this message can be found. And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast. Thanks for being with us.